right. Okay. Second
Oh my
time
God, we're back.
form. All right. So if this is your first time checking it out, though, my name is very happy Tuesday, loves. Thank you so much for checking out this Facebook Live. I've got Maggie on here. We're going to try this again. So we are doing a Facebook Live on the MVPs for the new year, most valuable points for mental health in 2021. We actually started at 4 o'clock, but we were having a little bit of technical difficulties. So Maggie said, let's jump back on there and try again. So Maggie, since we're doing this again, if you can, in a nutshell, tell us a little bit about yourself. Hopefully we can get this in this time.
Yes. You kind of cut off a little bit, but we're good now. So I'm assuming you wanted me to say
Yeah, just
something.
a little bit about yourself. Uh-oh. Oh, it's freezing up a bit.
Nope, you're good. I'm going to make this work. This is happening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So So I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I'm guessing that's what you asked me, right? This is totally live. Okay. Licensed mental health counselor. I've been in the field for a little bit over 10 years. I treat clients that suffer from trauma, depression, and anxiety. And I'm also a life coach. I'm currently finishing my certification with ICF, which is the International Coaching Federation. And I'm just, looking forward to helping anyone recreate their lives. I mean, just deal and manage and be able to persevere through mental health and whatever obstacles, they're having. Mental health just, it's really vast. There's a lot of complexity to it. We hear about all these disorders and we hear about all these classifications, but it's in our daily habits, right? It's in everything we do. So that's a little bit of what I'm passionate about. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that Maggie and I talked about is a foundation to mental health, regardless of race, socioeconomic status, whatever it is having a purpose in life, having your why, knowing what your why is. And I noticed that can be a common denominator among certain things like depression or anxiety. If we don't have a why or why we're doing what we're doing, we can lose our motivation or our drive. So Maggie, what are some of your thoughts on that as far as going into 2021 and having a purpose?
Yeah. So if anybody's ever read Starting with Why by Simon Sinek, I highly recommend it. I think it's one of the main things that, even when you take business courses, they teach you. But I think it needs to be applied in general, in your life. As human beings, we are all trying to find meaning in what we're doing. That's something we do all the time. Why am I getting this job? What does this mean to me? What does this relationship, spell out for me? Like, why am I here? And stuff like that. We're always trying to make sense of what is happening to us, what has been done, what we're doing, right? So when it comes to meaning and purpose, I think it's huge for someone to be able to thrive. So a lot of us, and a lot of, I've been there myself, and a lot of clients that I've spoken with, they talk about, why am I even here? Like, and we're not talking about suicidal thoughts or anything like that, but a lot of us, there comes a time where we question, like, what is our purpose? Like, what are we putting back into the world? Usually I think we were saying earlier around our 30s, it's kind of like average age where it kind of settles in. Some of us are a little bit more mature, so we get it, a little earlier in our 20s, but we're always wanting to find out where we belong. Human beings want to belong, and that is all linked to purpose and meaning. So for example, you and I found at least one of our purpose, and one of the things that's meaningful to us is, counseling. It's our career. It's helping others, right? And so that is something that I'm pretty sure I can say helps you drive every day, to your goals, to your aspirations. You link that purpose, that why, to the things that you do. When we don't have that, it's very often that we find ourselves feeling lost.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we'll describe it as feeling empty, like we're not fulfilled. And that is huge. It's a huge indicator. Not necessarily, everyone's like, oh, there's something wrong, you need to go see a therapist. Yes, but it's a huge indicator that we need to also look into our lives, kind of take account for the things that we're doing, that we're not doing. What did we lose? What do we still have yet to gain that can really influence that part of our lives, so we can thrive. And it sounds cliche, like, to be the best you can be, right? But I think we all want to have that feeling of, I got this, this is a win. But it starts kind of looking inward.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even as you mentioned, that looking within of earlier, you said, and I love that Maggie had brought this up. This was right before you got disconnected. You were talking about being stuck. And sometimes people get stuck. We get stuck.
Yes.
I myself get stuck sometimes too. And that goes into, sometimes I like to use this looks a little silly, but when people, in the comic strips, when somebody's thinking of something, there's a thought bubble. And if I'm telling myself constantly, I'm stuck, I'm not where I want to be, I don't have this, I don't, whatever that story might be, and not realizing that also it could be a worthiness conversation. What if everything around me is actually okay, but I just have so much fear around telling myself that this might actually be okay and I might be okay. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're worthy of things being okay if things are okay.
Yes. Yeah. I have a lot to say on that. A lot of times, and I'm sure a lot of people can identify with this, any of us who have struggled, any of us who have been through so much, it almost becomes a natural form, kind of that self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if something's not going wrong, it's not something that applies to us. Like, oh, that's not, we'll say it like, with my luck, that's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
It sounds like casually how we kind of drop that phrase, but we're already telling ourselves that we're potentially not worthy of that outcome. And that's already pivoting us towards a not a favorable outcome towards whatever we're doing, right? So it's very important when we have that again, they're indicators. So why am I feeling stuck?
Mm-hmm.
Am I feeling stuck because it's my environment? I mean, we have to analyze. Is it my environment? Is it myself? Am I putting certain limitations on myself, like limiting beliefs, you would say, in the coaching world, right?
Right.
Are we thinking, do we have a distorted view of how we should receive, things, how things should play out for us? And all of that has layers of self-worth, like we were talking about, and how we really view ourselves. Because personally, I have had to do a lot of work on self-worth. I've had to overcome a few hurdles in my life that left me feeling like I wasn't enough. And when you already have that imprinted into your head, like you're not enough of something, it's almost like you place it in other areas as well.
Yeah.
So like if you weren't enough at work, for example, or in your career or whatever, it suddenly, believe it or not, spills over to your relationships. And suddenly it becomes like a theme for your life. And then one day you have this thought, right? You have this thought of how you want to do something new, right? Oh, I'm going to have a career change, or I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But suddenly all that creeps back in. Is that really going to happen for me? It never happened before. I had to go through all this fire just to even be here. And we're already saying like where we are isn't even good enough when we say it that way. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I hope that kind of hit somewhere where you were trying to go.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. And also noticing too, when sometimes we get kind of caught up in, I could be sitting right here having this conversation with Maggie, and my head could be in October of next year. Or I'm worried about February already. Or I'm worried about, so and noticing too that if I'm not even present with what's right in front of me as well, and just future tripping or thinking about things ahead of time. So something else that Maggie and I talked about is the importance of being present too, just being right where your feet are. Being right, as one of my friends, like, she told me that, and ever since she told me that, I love that. I was like, be where my feet are, be right here. Because
it's so hard.
Right.
It's so difficult. I don't know if, I think I have to believe that other people suffer from my syndrome of the future. there has to be an edited edition of the DSM where we're going to add something about anticipating the future, and it's going to be anticipatory, like whatever diagnosis is going to be anticipatory blank. So it's anticipatory grief, anticipatory plans. I don't know. Being present, and I don't know if how this will jive, but I'm pretty direct even in my therapy with clients. And I really don't sugarcoat things. I'm polite, but I like to be upfront, and I think at least all my clients so far have appreciated that. Being present literally sounds very holistic, right? Like when we think about, oh, just be in the moment, and like, whoever meditates, whoever's in that realm, and I'm not making fun of it. It's just kind of like the review people get if you tell your client just be present. Like, what does that mean? Literally, I have to tell myself to enjoy the moment. And what I mean by enjoy the moment, and what I mean by being present is like, if I'm literally right now outside in my porch because I couldn't get service inside my house, I have to enjoy the fact that I'm right here, and I cannot worry about whether we're going to have another connection issue.
Right.
But I'm constantly battling that. And I think, I don't know if this happens outside of the US, but I feel like the lifestyles we have, we're always worried about the future. We're worried about what's next year's vacation going to be. We're trying to plan everything like 2 weeks from now. What's your schedule? What's my schedule? And I'm not saying those things aren't necessary, but we end up spilling that again over into, let's say, time with our children. We're with our children. We're thinking about tomorrow's meeting. And it's not right or wrong. I personally have to work on that. But it's super important to, take each moment, because it almost like you end up going so fast that you don't even remember sometimes things that happened, and then we have this like, oh, time flies. Well, yes, it flies, but your mind is flying. And what happens is, if you add 20 years to that, now you're exhausted. Now you're exhausted, and you don't remember half the things you did.
Whoa.
So that has been such a big lesson. I don't know what you think, but I constantly have to remind
Yeah,
myself
absolutely.
of that.
And so much so that I wear a bracelet to remind myself, Dani, be where your feet are, because I'm that way.
Oh, geez, I need one of those. Okay.
And it's that way when I look down, I'm like, nope, I remember. Okay, no, Dani, be where your feet are, because I do it constantly. Especially, I feel like sometimes, and I'm probably just this is my justification for it. When we're busy, right, we're always on the next thing. What's the next, like you just said, what's the next, okay, the next vacation, the next meeting, the next, so we all do it. So being present looks like really okay, what time is it? I'm being in this moment right now at this very second. So that's a huge point. So when Maggie and I were talking about this, and we were having this conversation, getting ready for this Facebook Live, foundation of having a purpose, having meaning, self-esteem, checking in with yourself and what you're telling yourself, about your life. And I love how she says that, of how Maggie's saying that how we show up in our life in one way, it carries over in other areas. It's human behavior, it's patterns. So are there any, besides I know we talked about having purpose and self-esteem and, feeling deserving too of the things that we have and being present. Are there other things, Maggie, that you have found, whether it's in your practice with your clients or maybe personally in your own life, that you feel like, all right, you know what? I need to take this into 2021 with me?
Yes, I have the answer. I think another theme that a lot of people have been mentioning, and it's been pivoting in sessions, is the concept of authenticity. And authenticity, I know, usually comes from either from what I've seen a coaching world or holistic world, but really I see it a lot in therapy too, because clients are coming in and they're stating that either they're not able to be themselves. Often, let's say with work, right, with careers, depending on your career, you have to be this person when you're there. And then you come home and you can like relax, right? Or you can take the mask off, or whatever the phrase is. And I can tell you, just from a trauma perspective, you're already treating yourself in a fight or flight kind of state. It's almost like you've got to survive. So you've got to be this person when you're in this arena. And then you come home, you don't have to be that person anymore, but you're doing the Jekyll and Hyde thing so often that it can be really, really affecting to your mental stability. Depending on how you self-care, depending how we take care of ourselves and how often we have to engage in behaviors like that, it can really mess you up. Like, think of 10 to 20 years of that. You know, people take careers for long periods of time, and we don't feel, let's say, the effects of these changes instantly. You know, all of us can, you know, we were meant to survive, right? So if we had to go hunting and the world went down, you know, we do it. But who would be sustainable? You know, kind of like the whole Darwinism, right? So who would be the ones that would withstand the test of time? And that is huge. So being authentic, for example, for me, it means that I had to take account of my values. I had to take account of the things that I know serve me in my life and the things that don't, right? And how are we going to balance all of it, or how are we going to declutter per se, so that we are in our best place wherever we go? We don't have to, you know, I'm not saying that we don't filter ourselves. I think we all do socially, we filter, but we don't have to, we shouldn't have to feel like we have to be a whole other person in whatever scenario we are. That's usually another indicator. You know, you're gonna have tension, there's gonna be friction, because you can play a role for a little bit, but then you got to go back to being you. It's part of where your baseline would be. And so can you imagine having to do that for an extended period of time? And then we're running into, a lot of us aren't taught emotional intelligence or emotional agility. And then so now we're going to be emotionally exhausted. Oftentimes when clients are talking to me about something like that, they're already, you know, it's already spilling into other areas of their lives. So for example, if you can't be yourself half the time, and then you want to be home and you want to be yourself, you need to unwind, right? So all of us therapists, or any first responders in you know, careers where you know, you get away from the hustle and bustle and you have to like lay down, would understand that, right? But then you need to unwind, but then you also have to be present for your family, friends, dog, cat, I don't know. You want to be you, but we're having this conflict, this, you know, cognitive type of dissonance, this conflict that isn't letting us be. So over time, a lot of people do become bitter, angry, resentful, you know, and I know I keep going back to the career thing. I just think it's this easier example for a lot of us. We'll say, you know, but it pays the bills.
That's true.
But
As
it
you
pays
know,
the bills, but what? Like, how? What are you giving yourself
right.
up? Like, what of yourself are you giving up in the process?
Right. As you're saying that, Maggie, Heather commented here, this is so true for healthcare workers. I don't know if you saw that. It's so funny because you just started saying that, first responders, therapists.
I can't see the comments, but
yeah, as you're saying that, she wrote, this is so true for healthcare workers.
Yes. Some of the populations that I work with are first responders, so I totally get it. And I mean, therapists are first responders. I know we don't really get seen as that, especially those of us that work in crisis stabilization.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you brought that up, the authenticity, because that didn't even cross my mind. And so much so often I tell people about being yourself in your own skin, being authentic, being true to being, and is your, that actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it's so funny because when you're really authentic, then you start to manifest the things that really are truly in alignment with what your heart really actually wants anyway, because you are showing up authentically. So exactly. I love that you brought that up. I love that.
And, awesome. and it leads you to a more fulfilling life, which I think leads back to meaning.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Is there anything that Maggie, that you would say or encourage people? Say that somebody's watching this right now, because I know we've had people on and off between the last video and this one. If anyone kind of, let's say somebody's watching this and they've been feeling a little overwhelmed, they've been feeling in a funk, they check this out, they say, okay, most valuable points for the new year. You know, we summed up purpose, self-worth, and feeling deserving, being present, authenticity. Is there anything that if someone's feeling overwhelmed that you would kind of sum up for them, or in a way kind of help them to say, okay, well, where should I start? Oh my gosh, this is all good information, but where should I start? What would you say to that person?
The first thing that I would say is that it is totally normal to feel overwhelmed. I think in society, and I'll speak for women, I cannot speak for guys. For women, I think it is very easy for us to feel like we're not supposed to be overwhelmed, like we're just supposed to have broader shoulders and just add more things on because that's just how it is and we can figure it out. Now, I agree. We're going to figure it out. Women always figure it out. However, it's very, very normal to break down, to be overwhelmed, and to understand, just normalize the fact that right now it's a lot. Oftentimes, we don't give ourselves that break. And again, this could apply to men too. I just don't want to speak of a gender that I'm not familiar with. I don't even have sons. So I have 2 daughters. So, but it could definitely be applicable to everyone. We are not weaker because we feel overwhelmed. We're simply human. We're supposed to feel overwhelmed. That's okay. And the thing is, we need to deal with that first. We need to de-escalate. We need to self-regulate. You know, and explaining self-regulation would take a whole other live. But so yeah, send me any questions or send you any questions if anybody needs to figure out self-regulation. But we need to come down back to that baseline. And what I mean by that, for anyone who doesn't know, is just kind of that level where we feel centered again, where we're not heightened in the feeling of the overwhelmingness, so that then we can think clearly. So basically what I'm saying is, you know, where your brain takes the emotion in your amygdala, if I said that correctly, or I said the hypothalamus. Anyways, it's in the middle of your brain. And so you want to bring it to the frontal lobe of your brain where you have your executive functioning. But we don't do that unless we are de-escalated and we are self-regulated. And now we can balance, you know, both the, basically balance the central nervous system. Because that just means biologically your nervous system is just heightened and we need to calm it down. So whether that's through breathing exercises or whether that's through EFT, the freedom techniques, the tapping, or some other, you know, types of progressive muscle relaxation. I know there's so many things to do so that then we can think straight. So the first thing I would do is normalize. And the second thing, once we normalize and we de-escalate, then what I would say is we need to put things back into perspective. We can think clearer. And this is literally, it sounds wrong, but we can think clearer when the emotions are not in the way, even though emotions are natural. But, you know, we find that emotional agility when we're able to do those by steps. And then we can be intelligent about it and say, okay, I'm feeling overwhelmed because A, B, C, D. Let me see, does D really fit? Okay, maybe it doesn't. And so we start to kind of prioritize and then kind of help ourselves declutter, per se. The last thing I'll say is there's this nice chart that I saw once, and I don't recall who drew it, but it's a chart that has 4 quadrants, and it says important, non-important, urgent, non-urgent. And it's such a great exercise to really think about all those things, let's say, that you're feeling overwhelmed about. Where do they belong? Are they important? Are they non-important? Are they urgent? Are they non-urgent? And the thing is that a lot of the times we find ourselves putting out fires 24/7, never getting to the important stuff. And we have it flipped. Mm-hmm. So we need to see what is truly important, what is going to take, so important is like long-term, right? It's important for me to launch this business. What steps do we need to take? Because this business will thrive and will give me X, Y, and Z. Urgent first of all, urgent doesn't come up all the time. People think a lot of things are urgent. Urgent is like what you didn't expect. So a lot of things shouldn't be in urgent. Most things land in non-important and non-urgent, and we're not realizing that those are the things we're giving focus to. Having 20 things on our list when we are only capable of doing 5. So also seeing the things that where we prioritize and what we're giving the attention to, so that we also don't have the reoccurrence of the overwhelmingness. And that could be it's a really short explanation. It takes a lot more time, but it can give a lot of clarity to someone of where they're standing and where it's coming from.
Yeah, of course. And I forgot about that chart. I love that you brought that up, because I've even had to do that, because otherwise I find myself thinking, well, this is important and that's important, and well, this must be urgent and that must be urgent too. And now I've got the whole box is like heavy on the urgent and important side, when really it probably should be the other way around. So I love that you brought that up. I forgot about that. I've seen that box before myself. So, okay, good. Now, Maggie, if anybody wanted to reach out to you, if they had any questions or maybe interested in learning more about you, how would they reach out to you or find you?
So my practice's name is National Therapeutic Alliance, and I'm located over by Coral Springs, Florida, but of course we do telehealth. So I'm able to service the entire state of Florida. The website is exactly the same name. So www.nationaltherapeuticalliance.com. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all have the same name. And for anybody who doesn't want to do that and just wants to give us a call, the phone number is 954-570-1332.
Maggie, thank you so much again for doing this with me. When Maggie and I met, it was funny. We just kind of connected, and we thought, oh, you know what? Let's do a Facebook Live together. And I thought, considering with everything going on right now, what is something that we can really provide for people or offer people? And Maggie said, let's do some MVP stuff, most valuable points for mental health. So we hope that you found this valuable. If it rang true for you or anything resonated for you, please feel free to share this video. And as Maggie shared her information, reaching out to Maggie. If you have any questions for me, Dani, D-A-N-I, at DaniLeberry.com. Maggie, thank you so much again for joining me, and even for your persistence in let's do this again, let's try again. We did a whole new video all over again. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I just want to say, gratitude has been such a huge theme for me this year. And I am just grateful for everyone that I have had, God put into my life. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for having me on. I can't wait to do this again. Relationships is what it's all about. And surrounding yourself with people that just want to do better. And that's exactly what I feel about you. You're thriving. You're doing what you want to do. You're going places. And I'm just glad that I can be part of that journey.
Thank you so much, Maggie. All right, for the viewers, thank you for watching. Maggie, thanks again. And you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves. Thanks, Maggie. Bye.